Miami. Now let the record reflect that our council meeting will begin at 7:17 p.m. Today is Tuesday, October 14, 2014. And let me welcome those of you watching on channel 77 and live streams. And good evening, Councilwoman Keys, if you want to say hi to the people. You don't have that.
Thank you all for being here this evening.
Councilman Scott Galvin. Hmm? And Councilwoman Stewart is not there. And Mr. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Bien-Aimé,
Here.
Councilwoman Keys,
Here.
Councilwoman Steril, Councilman Galvin.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I know Councilwoman Stewart is here. Now we're going to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and with Zico Fremont, is the Director of Governmental Relations at FIU Bay Campus. He's a resident of the great city of North Miami.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now follow by the invocation with our Assistant Chief, Larry Joiga.
Thank you, Mayor. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us here together this evening. Please guide our mayor and council as they conduct our city business. Please watch over our men and women in the military as they protect our rights throughout the world. Bless us all as we head home to our families. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Be seated. Now we're going to have a special presentation. To begin our special presentations tonight, this evening, I would like to invite Tanya Wilson Sejour, our Community Planning and Development Manager, to present the Neighborhood Beautification Awards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to present the third quarter Neighborhood Beautification Award. For those of you that aren't familiar with the program, for several years, North Miami has hosted a Neighborhood Beautification Award program where we recognize property owners, whether it's residential or commercial properties, that have taken the effort to maintain their property, those that have done any kind of sustainable rehab, any type of architectural features that we believe are worthy of recognition and worthy of award. We, on a quarterly basis, recognize those properties. So our first award recipient, I'm happy to present the Stewart family. And the Stewart family is located, it's a single family residence that's located at 415 Northeast 141st Street. And they're being recognized for architectural appeal. They have a well-maintained property with several ornamental features, also recognizing them for landscape maintenance and improvements. Not sure if the IT department has an opportunity to show the pictures of the properties that are being recognized. Okay, moving right along. The second award recipient, we're happy to recognize Mr. Kim Skinner. For the first one, is the Stewart family here? Okay, it looks like the Stewart family isn't here. We're going to move on to our second award recipient for Beautification Award this quarter. Mr. Kim Skinner, if Mr. Skinner could come forward. He's been recognized for a historic home in North Miami that's been rehabbed. It's located at 1925 Northeast 133rd Street. And this home has had a green retrofit. The property itself, as I mentioned, is a historic property. It's been retrofitted with solar panels, reflected roof coatings, energy efficient fixtures, and drought tolerant landscaping. So we want to recognize Mr. Skinner for that rehab project. We have it on PowerPoint, so. Correct. Yeah, this is it. It's 1030 Northeast 133rd Street. It's not loading? Okay. So our third award recipient, we have two categories actually. The first two were for the residential category. The next one is under the commercial category. We want to recognize Bank United. Do we have a representative from Bank United here? This is for branch number 478, and it's located at 12290 Biscayne Boulevard. And Bank United renovated an old dilapidated restaurant and renews the actual drive-through from the restaurant for the current drive-through of the bank right now. Their current design includes clapboard sidings, standing seam metal roof, contrasting trim on traditional windows, and really that site has a very inviting feel, and it feels like a neighborhood banking center. We want to recognize Bank United for the reuse of that site on the corner of 125th and Biscayne Boulevard. And as we know, that's a major intersection in the city, so we want to recognize Bank United for improving that property. The last recipient that we have is the Performing Arts Network. Do we have Pan here? All right, so we're going to bring Pan forward. Pan, for those of you that don't know, is actually a performing arts studio, and they provide dance, music, and theater. They provide classes to the public, and it's from children all the way to adults that they provide these classes to. And Pan is located at 13124 West Dixie, and they're being recognized for architectural appeal, for unified facade design, exterior lighting features, decorative bollards, and impact windows and doors. Also recognizing them for landscape appeals with exotic landscaping elements. So we're going to bring Pan forward and recognize them for improvements on West Dixie. For those of you that are interested in making recommendations, because if you hear us every quarter going, well, my building looks wonderful, how come I wasn't recognized? We have a link on our website. So if you believe there are properties in your subdivision that should be recognized for a residential award, we encourage you to send an email recognizing those properties, whether it's for architectural appeal or for sustainability. If you have properties that have made effort to do xeriscaping, anything that you think is worthy of that award, then we encourage you to submit your nomination to the Community Planning and Development Department, and that will be considered. The next quarter, we're going to be recognizing those will be in the month of December. So you have an opportunity to make your submittal prior to that time. Thank you.
The next presentation is in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I would like to invite Mrs. Andrea Ivory. This month, we recognize one of the most common cancers among women in the United States of America, breast cancer. The American Cancer Society predicts this year about 232,670 new cases of breast cancer will be diagnosed in women, and about 40,000 women will die from breast cancer. It is the second leading cause of cancer death after lung cancer. This is why it is important that women take all the necessary measures to prevent breast cancer with better health initiatives and early screenings. The Women Breast Cancer Health Initiative was founded based on the sole facts that early detection saves lives. The door-to-door outreach campaigns show to people the importance of early detection of breast cancer. And since Women Breast Cancer Health Initiative started, they touch about 67,000 doors to educate women about the importance of breast health in three South Florida counties, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. The vision is to fight breast cancer as a life-threatening disease and to educate women about breast cancer as well as heart disease. Mrs. Ivory, on behalf of the 2,000 plus households, including residents of the great city of North Miami, I want to present you this award on behalf of the great city of North Miami.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Good evening. Again, I am Andrea Ivory. I'm the founder and executive director of the Women's Breast Health Initiative. And it is a distinct privilege and honor to accept this recognition, but it is more important and more of an honor to be able to serve the women in this great city. Since 2008, we've been knocking on doors. We've been educating women and screening them at no cost to them. But more importantly, last month, we visited 2,858 homes right in the city of North Miami, and we couldn't have done that without your partnership. So we really greatly appreciate that, and on behalf of our officers, board of directors, but most importantly, the women that we serve, a heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you. Your time and your resources are given for the greatest reason of all, to save lives. Thank you.
Our last presentation will be a Government Finance Officers Association, and I would like to invite the Budget Department, Mr. Soe, to come forward. Also, I'm going to call Terry Enlon from Budget Department. And Mr. Roy Brown. Mrs. Linda Davidson from the Government Finance Officers Association to present the award.
Good evening. I'm honored to be here today on behalf of the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada to present the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award to the City of North Miami. My name is Linda Davidson, and I serve as the Financial Services Director for the City of Boca Raton, Florida, but I also have the pleasure of being a past president for the GFOA. The Distinguished Budget Presentation Award has been promoting the preparation of high-quality budget documents since 1984. The purpose of the program is to encourage and assist governments to prepare excellent budget documents for the benefits of citizens and other parties with a vital interest in a government's finances. During the 30 years the program has operated, it has gained widespread recognition as the premier indicator of excellence in governmental budgeting. To earn the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, the City of North Miami had to substantially conform to the program's demanding criteria. Such a record reflects the professionalism and commitment of numerous individuals as well as many hours of hard work. It also reflects a high degree of dedication, professionalism, and leadership. This is the first time that the City of North Miami has won this award, and this award is for the fiscal period starting October 1st, 2013. The Government Finance Officers Association hopes that this award to the City of North Miami will serve as an example and encourage others to strive for the same high standards in their own budget documents. Therefore, it's my privilege on behalf of the Government Finance Officers Association to present the City of North Miami this Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, and your staff is to be commended for their long hours of hard work to meet the program criteria. Congratulations.
Thank you. And now the last presentation. Have a seat. Be seated. Yeah, the last presentation will be with Mr. Bill Privatel. It's gonna be about Biscayne Landing. It's a presentation, and Mr. Privatel.
Thank you.
He's gonna be with us for about 10 minutes for a presentation about Biscayne Landing.
Good evening, everyone. I'm William Privatel of 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. This comes as a result of being on the planning board more than a year ago, almost 2 years ago, and having Oleta Partners present their designs for the Biscayne Landing site, and for having a series of criticisms about various parts of the project. And after a series of meetings like that, I thought, well, why don't I put my money where my mouth is, take some time off, and try to focus on trying to meet those objectives myself, which I've tried to do. And we have a presentation that tries to address the various components of the site in an orderly, pragmatic fashion, not necessarily aesthetic, but to try to resolve problems so that it has the highest and best value. So that we have high-rise buildings that don't look into each other, parking garages that we don't have to see, just like we see at the Oaks that are so abhorrent, so that we have retail that's properly located and as close to Biscayne Boulevard as possible. So we have a very regular circulation pattern that's logical and doesn't crowd into one location. And then we have a truly meaningful park space. And I'll get on with our presentation. Biscayne Landing, an urban design outline for a master planned community. An attempt to make everything work well for everyone. I do mean everyone. This is both for the people that will be living there, the government to make things easier in processing, as well as the developers so they can achieve a good result that will have good profitability and stability. This is a study of geometry, massing, and organization of usage. This is not a finished product. utilizing limited rendering skills, ugly diagrammatic color, and no camouflage. So this ain't going to be pretty, but I hope that the intent becomes clear that, that we do try to resolve some of the problems and these can be implemented somehow. And I do apologize for the quality of the renderings. We're going to cover these elements, as I just mentioned. These are site design opportunities. Simplified circulation. This is calling for, if you can see it, it's a little tough in this sketch, but this is calling for a loop road to go, this is tough, I didn't practice with this computer, but there is a north-south, this is tough, not my computer, sorry, a north-south median, and you can see that there's this loop road that goes throughout the site and embraces or encompasses a Central Park feature. And this loop road essentially says that the west side is north-south and works with our existing grid. And it is straight and businesslike, and that's where you find your retail to the north and to the south. It's curvilinear to the east side, and that's where you find your residential, and it's more relaxed. And it helps to separate the two means of traffic. You don't want the people living there to be so mixed in with people that are trying to shop there and vice versa. With that, of course, it does acknowledge the main entry at, I believe it's 143rd Street, the existing large entryway. And in addition to that, I believe the street is 141st Street, tries to acknowledge that as a possible entry to commercial activities so that trucks and things, other vehicles of that nature are not mixed in with the circulation, the residential circulation. In addition to that, we have other roads that are leading off to Biscayne Boulevard to help reduce the traffic. And to the north, there is an overpass that would go over 151st Street heading north. So therefore, there'd not be the congestion at 151st Street of people crossing over a lane of traffic on their way north. So it would reduce traffic going north as well as south. May I also point out at the main entranceway, which currently the tracks cross the where the Lexus dealership is, really needs to be relocated. And it should be relocated across from the main entrance of Biscayne Landing. Being that it would not have the same slope, it would be a larger area, it would be easier to get over the tracks, and it would help people get westward without having to go onto Biscayne Boulevard. So another feature that would be easier. To the far east side, there is a connector to FIU. And sorry about that. Oh, come on. Okay, the next aspect, we're going to self-surveilling security. You can see that there has been an effort to keep the high-rise housing as far away from Biscayne Boulevard as possible to mitigate the effect that's been caused by the Oaks, now 151 condos, and to try to keep those towers in some sort of alignment and distance from Biscayne Boulevard, where they'd also take the better advantage of the wildlife preserve. By doing that, we have a skyline that's created, but in doing that, we also have a self-surveilling security situation where in the park area, that open space, you now have an increased level of security because half of the 4,300 apartments are now looking directly onto the park. In addition to all the storefronts, potential school, police station, are all looking onto the park. It is circled by a string of lighting, such as like a pearl necklace, and it would become a self-contained configuration rather than miscellaneous space everywhere. We're trying to optimize the high-rise value. Well, if we have towers that are looking into each other, and some towers that are looking onto and next to, high-rise levels, 5 levels of parking, that's not going to get us our best value for those apartments. In this project, in this proposal, every one of the tower apartments has a guaranteed distant view, either to the east or to the west. No one is looking into another neighbor's apartment. They're non-obstructed. In addition to that, down below, not tower apartments, but down below, hiding the parking which is below, would be townhouses and lofts above those, so you would not see the parking coming in. To increase this value, you can see that a situation has been set up where all the towers are doubled. They enter into the middle part of those towers. There is a concierge above to the middle, therefore you can have an economy of staff. There's a transfer floor, and they go up to the various apartments. Certain areas, such as these 4 towers, are segregated by a water feature so that it appears as if they're on an island. These particular 4 towers in the middle would be condominiums, higher end condominiums, and through the middle of that would be the direct line connection to FIU. We're trying to optimize retail value by maximizing the storefront access. Well, rather than putting our back to the housing that's there, we have 4,300 units that we can take advantage of to and publicize to be able to get their shopping dollar. And to the north and to the south, we have retail lined up along the park, which are storefronts, continuous storefronts, which face onto these across the park to the towers. So if you're in the towers, half of those 4,300 units are looking down to these, what could be very attractive storefronts, multi-level, of various types of restaurants and shops and things, and you would be able to get people to actually walk to the shops. So therefore, that would generate a great amount of income and involvement rather than turning our backs, having retail turn its back to those shops. It's inviting them on an hourly basis. In addition, the retail is also located near the hotel at the very south end. And we'll talk about the hotel's relationship to that. There's a symbiotic relationship between the hotel at the south end and the retail at the south end. Similar to Bal Harbor. I'll try to use local examples similar to Bal Harbor, the Bal Harbor shops in the St. Regis, only in this case it would be actually closer. And in this case, a building might be similar to St. Regis, only there's a more glorified entryway to it. In this case, the yellow structure being retail could be box stores that are separated, but it could also be North Miami's first indoor mall. And again, it has the closest frontage to Biscayne Boulevard, and it also utilizes the area that's sort of flat and at the level of Biscayne Boulevard to bring cars off Biscayne, have them park at the Biscayne Boulevard level for that level or 2, and then above that would be the retail. Optimizing the hotel value, as I just said, the hotel, the figure in the middle, would be at the end of an axis that's more than a half-mile long. It's really about 5/8 of a mile, and it would give a certain prominence. We've wondered about how we're going to up it from a 2-star to a 3-star, or 3-star to a 4-star. Well, I think it would start by giving it this sort of location. We're all familiar with, in Washington, the Capitol. Well, that has prominence because that's at the end of the mall, and so does the Lincoln Memorial, which is at the end of the mall. Similar to this case, it would give prominence. It gives a view to the hotel to the north over the park. It gives the optimal view to the south to get a view of the Miami skyline. And in addition to that, if you want guests to come back, you don't want them to the north of the site where they have the smell of the water treatment plant on a regular basis. As soon as they get out of their car, they may wind up turning around and leaving. This would preserve the integrity of the hotel to some degree. Meaningful open space. The whole centerpiece there, and the oblong piece, I'll start from the left to the right. You see a blue circle, which would be a fountain feature surrounded by kiosks, 6 of them shown. Then you go up a little further, you see an octagonal piece, which is really a fenced-in playground. Next to that, 2 squares, which are basketball courts, followed by 3 larger squares, which are the size of which are the size of soccer fields. And then it repeats on the other side. To the north side, there's a small pink or purple object there. That would be the police substation, which has access to roadways east and west, has a surveillance site all over that part of the park, and particularly towards the hotel. So we have that, in addition to a water feature with an amphitheater that's available. One more thing to notice is that it's not shown, this is shown flat, but there are these two pieces that project into, just to the left of that purple circle is a roadway. It looks like a node. The park goes over the roadway in 2 locations. The park goes over the roadway which would bring cars from Biscayne to the residential area, and the park is continuous and therefore not dangerous and would allow people to do more than a full mile loop without having any interference with traffic. So therefore it'd be very safe. We're going to try to conceal parking structures using features in existing topography.
Mr. Privatel, and
Almost over.
I give you another minute and a half to, to conclude.
Okay. Conceal parking structures using features in existing topography. The parking structures are this. You come off the main spine roadway, the circular roadway, you go up. It's just like Bal Harbor. You go up one flight, you're on the middle level of parking. The 2 levels down below are concealed and buried where the topography is actually existing and lower, so you're not removing a lot of the existing soil. And you can also go up too, so it's more convenient. It hides the parking. It's altogether works better, and it gives prominence to each individual building. All of it's concealed throughout this entire project. A viable connection to FIU, rather than taking that angular piece and going through an existing dirt path that somebody made who knows when without any real thought, this is an opportunity where the actual geometry of the buildings is in exact alignment within 1 or 2 degrees of the exact location of the front of FIU. It lines up perfectly. So there's a north-south axis, there's an east-west axis. The east-west axis lines up exactly with FIU. It's 4 blocks away. And it also is, if we have functions in the park, it has 1,500 parking spaces plus grass space to be able to use. So this is a way of going through the mangroves without making it dangerous and have it straight and safe. Enhanced vehicle sales, this may be a done deal. I thought all the dealerships should be in one showroom with various brands rather than dealerships, not seeing sprawling cars and parking lots and such and degrading the site. I think if one were to get $10 million to put up dealerships, I think we've compromised the $1 billion project by more than 1%, and I think it's really been an undermining of the entire project. On this case, we could have had in that purple shape, it could have been glass lined with cars of all sorts of makes. It would be like a Guggenheim museum of cars, and would have been much more fruitful for everybody and would have been much higher value per square foot renting. Finally, convincing school and culture. On the left is an oval shape, which is the configuration of actual placement for the school. Rather than being retail being the centerpiece of Biscayne Landing, that it might be something a little bit more dignified. As I say, to embrace dignity, not just dollars. That's the school on the left, and on the right is a multicultural facility for the North Miami. It would be a large multi-purpose assembly building. It could be an auditorium, an exhibition hall. It could be for a staging area for other events that are taking place in the park. And the park could hold concerts and such of thousands of people. It could have many other functions used, and part of the school is actually a stage which is raised up.
Thank you.
This analysis shows, I'll just, here are the last slides. This now shows they tried to show that logic and clarity will increase value and stability. It has tried to employ a sense of grandeur to evoke a safe, desirable, and memorable experience. And that's kind of important, a safe, desirable, and memorable experience. And I thank you very much for your attention. If anybody would like a copy of at least this last sheet, it's available in the back of the room at the end of the alley. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and Pam's special presentation.
Good evening, everyone, and to our viewers on NoMi TV 77. My name is Pam Solomon, and on behalf of the City of North Miami, I'd like to share with you a few of our highlights of our upcoming events for the month of October. On this Saturday, Acting Mayor Bien-Aimé, in collaboration with the Florida Immigrant Coalition, will be hosting a citizenship drive at Griffin Center. That's located at 12220 Griffin Boulevard, and that's this Saturday, October 18th, from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. We have a listing of all of the documents that you must bring to apply for naturalization on site at Griffin Center on our website at northmiamifl.gov. Also on Saturday, we are participating, the North Miami Police Department always sponsors, along with the North Miami Beach Police Department, the 7th Annual Domestic Violence Walk. It takes place at the Senator Guimargules Amphitheater, which is located in North Miami Beach at 16501 Northeast 16th Avenue. The walk check-in begins at 4, and it starts at 5:30. We invite you to show your support and stand together to shine the light on domestic violence. there is a participation fee, which is all the proceeds are donated to Safe Space Foundation for women and domestic violence victims. You can visit safespacefoundation.org to register for the walk or to find out more information. Next Tuesday, October 21st, we are hosting a code compliance workshop here in the council chambers from 6 to 7:30 p.m. The workshop will cover an overview of the code compliance process, a review of case management process for all code violations from start to finish, and we'll discuss how citizens, residents, businesses can get involved in the process. Public discussion will be open following the presentation. For additional questions, we ask you to please contact the Code Compliance Office at 305-895-9832. On Thursday, October 23rd, we are hosting, in collaboration with Miami-Dade College North Campus, our second annual event in honor of International Creole Month. This will be a symposium on site at Miami-Dade College North Campus in collaboration with President Malou Harrison and Councilwoman Marie-Erlande Steril, spearheading the Creole Month Symposium. It is open to the public. We do have students from the local area colleges and our local high schools participating, especially students of modern languages. And the symposium will promote an understanding and preservation of global Creole cultures and languages. A reception with foreign government officials and university scholars will also take place at the end of the forum. For more information, we invite you to contact the North Miami office of the Mayor and Council at 305-895-9815. And this presentation is part of our Sister Cities International program. On Friday, October 24th, our North Miami Parks and Recreation Department always prepares for our Halloween Haunted Trails and Kids Fun Zone event. It's a very popular event for families. It is a ticketed event. There is a capacity at the Enchanted Forest Elaine Gordon Park, located at 1725 Northeast 135th Street. So once we reach capacity, we can no longer allow access to the park. So we invite you to come early. 7 to 11 is the event. Once again, it's on Friday, October 24th. Tickets at the gate are $5 for ages 4 and over and free for ages 3 and under. But we do have tickets, a family pack, on sale now at the Parks and Recreation office through the event date. And it's a family pack of 5 for $20. So it's basically buy 4, get 1 free. You'll enjoy our haunted nature trails at the event. Also a kids fun zone that's not so scary, fall festival and hayride. Lots of activities. For more information, visit our Celebrate site at northmiamifl.gov/celebrate. The next day, on Saturday, October 25th, we are hosting an event in honor of breast cancer awareness. This is Shooting for Awareness. It's a girls basketball event that will feature local girls varsity high school basketball teams in an exhibition tournament. For more information, we will post all of the location and time information on our parks website at northmiamifl.gov/parks. Thank you. I was trying to be brief.
Oh, that's for October.
Yes,
Oh, let's remind everyone on November the 1st, we're going to have a. Can you say something about it? About
Absolutely.
Bookman experience?
Another
coming on?
highlight for the month of November, we have a special NoMi Musical Nights presentation for Fall Fest is our event. We're featuring a popular Grammy-nominated Afro-Haitian roots band called Bookman Experience. It's a free outdoor concert here in the Mocha Plaza. Once again, that's Saturday, November 1st, 7 to 11 p.m. Free event, rain or shine. Food and beverages will be available on site for purchase. We have vendors on site as well. So for more information, or if you're interested in being a vendor or a volunteer for any of our events, you can contact the Parks and Recreation Department at 305-895-9840.
Thank you very much. And no city projects update? No? No hurricane preparedness? Yes. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good evening, everyone.
That's Dr. Luman Claude, our Deputy City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In about 1 month and a half, the 2014 hurricane season will be over. However, we are still in the middle of what is called historically the most dangerous month for Miami-Dade County, October. North Miami is alerting his residents to be prepared and remain prepared. Residents can still pick up the 2014 Miami-Dade Hurricane Preparedness Guide that is downstairs on the magazine stand. The city of North Miami, as a municipality, is alert and prepared. We will always do our best to remain prepared throughout the hurricane season and beyond.
Thank you very much. Mr. City Manager, is there any addition, deletion to the agenda?
Yes, yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to add section 11, tab P, as in Peter, a discussion item renaming 134th Street between Northwest 7th Avenue to Northwest 10th Avenue to Joyce and Red Mumford. This is an item that was sponsored by Councilwoman Keys.
Okay, can the city clerk have a copy? Did you
Sure.
have a copy of the, that's what's gonna be add?
That's
an
that's
add-on.
adding tab P as in Peter,
Okay.
and I'd like to pull tab N as in Nancy.
Okay. Okay. Now can I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
Move the consent agenda.
I second it.
Anyone wish to record a no? Measure pass 4-0. Mr. City Clerk.
Tab E.
Tab B. Right?
What happened to B?
What happened to tab B?
B is part of the
Huh?
consent.
Oh. It's D. Oh, E. Yeah, it's on the consent. Go ahead.
Proposed resolution of the Vice Mayor as acting mayor and the City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, approving the renewal of the health insurance coverage for the 20... Is the mic on? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Proposed resolution of the Vice Mayor as acting mayor of the City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, approving the renewal of health insurance coverage for the 2015 plan year with United Healthcare as the healthcare insurance provider for the City of North Miami employees, and authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents and effectuate said coverage, and providing as an effective date and for all other purposes.
Move approval.
Second, and it's Mr. Lewis, and I want to let you know that our city clerk, Mr.
Colitian.
Michael Etienne, and our deputy city clerk, Stephanie Thomas, they went to a seminary to a class in Orlando. That's why they're not here tonight. And Mr. Lewis will act as a city clerk. And second for tab E, and public hearing is open on tab E. Public hearing is now closed. Any questions? You have questions?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I was making my way up to the podium.
Oh, for on tab E?
E, yes.
Okay,
That's
go
the
ahead.
healthcare
Mhm.
package, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. So to make sure I have my figures right, is this the tab that has the increase to the employees' pay plan?
No, not pay
Their
plan. It
share
got to do
costs?
with insurance premium. That's the insurance.
Pardon?
Insurance premium.
Health insurance.
Yeah.
This, council members, you will be adding on an additional pay period cost to the employees with this item. and I don't know if you're aware of that at this time.
I spoke to.
I don't believe that it is in the interest of this particular council to burden the employees even further with additional, if this is the particular
No, we don't have to. Don't
agenda
scare the
item.
employee. And we spoke with Mr. Alim Ghani, and from what I understand, I don't know if we're gonna have if you need the council approval, and we're gonna cover the cost.
Okay, so the council is not going to pass the cost.
The city gonna
money
cover
that's in the budget
city
is going
gonna
to stay
cover
there.
the cost.
Very good.
The cost.
Then vote in favor of it. Thanks.
We say we're gonna vote for it. And any questions or comments? No. And I understand it will be an increase of 9%.
Yes.
And as responsible acting mayor and council member, we're not gonna pass it to the employees. We're gonna cover it. Okay?
Thank you.
Anyone wish to record a no?
Uh,
You have a question? Oh,
yes,
sorry.
thank you. Is that in the budget? The
Yes.
9%?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's covered under the present budget that was approved.
Okay. Thank you.
And next item pass 4-0.
Tab F, proposed resolution of the vice mayor as acting mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, approving the executions of an agreement and substantially the attached form between the city of North Miami and Oleta Partners LLC, authorizing the city manager and the city attorney to do all things necessary to effectuate the sales of approximately 50.6 acres of property known as the residential parcel located between the premises commonly referred to as Biskin Landing, and in connection with such sale, approving Oleta's soil removal plan of approximately 194,000 cubic yards of fill material obtained from the Brickell City Center, providing for an effective date and all other purposes.
Thank you very much. Is the Biscan Landing. It's 2 point on the item. The sale of 50.6 acres and the removal of the fill. And what we're gonna do is to have presentations, right? And can you call whoever's gonna do the presentation? First of all, who we gonna call?
I'd like to introduce Mr. Jack Winston from the Goodkin Consulting Group, who has represented the city on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council people.
You are is a consultant to analyze the appraisals or what? Or the whole process?
Mr. Winston was hired by the city to actually coordinate the process of the appraisals. He did not submit an appraisal. He also owns an appraisal company. He's one of the appraisers in Dade County, and he has coordinated the efforts of the other 3 appraisal companies who did the appraisal on the said parcel.
Like he was there to represent the interests of the city.
That's correct.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Yes, we have worked with the city manager in obtaining the services of 3 appraisers. We had a list of 6 appraisal firms, which were narrowed down to 3. The 3 appraisal firms that we interviewed all carried the MAI designation, which is the highest designation of the Appraisal Institute for certifying appraisal work. All 3 of them have extensive experience in working with various municipalities. The 3 firms that we chose were Integra Realty Resources, which is located in Miami, but as part of a national group of appraisers located in major cities all around the country. Present tonight from that group is Ryan Horman, representing Integra. Second group that we have is Dr. Robert Lewis, the president of Lewis Appraisal and Consulting Group, who is also here this evening. And the third appraisal is Bob Gallagher with Gallagher and Birch, who are also here. When we had our preliminary meetings with all of the appraisers, we sat down and set forth jointly the criteria under which these appraisals would be issued, so that all of the appraisers would be operating under the same format and the same set of conditions. We talked about what the city was attempting to achieve in terms of getting a value for the process of selling the lease fee on the property. There had to be a clear distinction as to what was being sold and what was being bought. And a detailed analysis will be presented by Bob Gallagher of how that process works from the standpoint of the appraisers. But just very briefly, we had to operate within the confines of the legal ramifications which was being presented to the appraisers. And that is in terms of what encumbers the property, who actually owns the property, what actually can legally be sold. Mr. Gallagher will address that as well. You will find that he will present to you two integral portions of the appraisal. And every appraiser followed this same program, so that there is an analysis of the net present value, which means today's value in today's dollars of the lease. That is a lease which is 99 years in the first term, with an option to extend for another 99 years. So it is possible that you will look at two values. The first being the first 99 years, the second being the total of a total of 198 years. The second part of that is what we call a reversion, which Mr. Gallagher will also explain. The reversion does take into account today's value of that property in what we call fee simple. And there is a process that you must go through in terms of doing that type of valuation. That will also be explained in great detail. So this is a standard procedure by which appraisals are done to achieve the value of the property, the value of what is being sold, and what you can sell. In addition, the final presentation by the three appraisers were to be averaged together so that we would come out with one price to submit to the council. In doing that, the city recommended, between myself and the city manager, that the consideration should be only for the first 99 years. While that goes a little bit beyond the criteria, the potential purchaser, Olita Partners, agreed to that. There are other conditions which will also be outlined by Mr. Gallagher, which were not part of the valuation and which would not be part of the sale, which Olita Partners also agreed to. The three appraisers came up with values that are very similar. And for a piece of property of this size and of this value, the Lewis Appraisal Group came up with a 99-year value of the lease fee of $12.5 million, Gallagher Group came up with 19 million, and Integra came up with 21 million. On the basis of appraisals, this is really pretty close in terms of each of the appraisals doing independent work using a certain fixed range of criteria, which means the percentage of discount, the discount rate for the net present value, and the inflation rate for the reversion. Those numbers were only 1 percentage point apart. So I'm going to turn the rest of the presentation over to Bob Gallagher.
And just a quick question before who designed the format to be used by the appraisers?
Which format?
Yeah.
I
Who
think
designed that? Who put it together?
The format basically was that we were looking at.
But you said we designed a format.
Yeah.
Who did that? You and the city manager?
It was a conversation between the city manager, myself, and the 3 appraisers in order to come up with a joint agreement, which they did. We had a discussion on what would be fair and equitable and what would follow the proper appraisal procedures, and we ended up with a criteria that all 3 agreed upon. We also ended up with a range of the discount rate and the inflation rate that was acceptable.
Okay, I don't know if you have a question for the consultant before we turn it over to the appraisers. No?
I'm gonna hold my questions till we have the presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Bob Gallagher. I'm an appraiser here in Miami. Have been doing appraisal work here in South Florida for more than 40 years. As Jack explained, we were hired to make an appraisal of the property. We were one of 3 appraisers. And while I'm not here to speak for all 3 of us, the remarks I'm going to give you are generally parallel all 3 analyses. So what I'm going to tell you, the other 2 appraisers could come say virtually the same thing. Somehow I got left behind and volunteered or something, so I'm here and they're not. So let me explain the process of the appraisal. It's a very complicated question we were asked, therefore it's a complicated answer. I will go slow, I will explain it. Please ask questions as we go along if you have any. The appraisal assignment was to estimate the market value of the city's interest in the income stream from the base lease payment. Focus on those words. The base lease payment due under the terms of the lease. So we got in a room, we all talked about what our appraisal was to be of, and the answer was, we want you to tell us what is the value of the base lease rental in this lease and the value of the property at the end of the lease. So to do that, we go through these steps. We define the base income, we calculate the present value of the rent from the income, we estimate a current value of the property, what's it worth if it were owned in fee, we project that value out to the end of the lease period, and then we discount it back to a present value. This is not a methodology any of us made up. This is the standard valuation methodology for this type of an appraisal problem that involves a long-term lease. Look at this schedule for a minute and bear with me. I'm sorry it's complicated, but it has a lot of information to convey, and they're only going to get more complicated for the next couple of slides. The far left column is the lease year. Every 10 years, the rent steps up. The second column from the left is the year that it steps up. The next column over, which is called annual rent, is the annual rent for each 10-year period. Now, the first 3 years of our program, the first 2 years are actually past. So 2014 is year 3. The next 3 years are prepaid rent, so we have no rent coming in there. The rent starts in 2017. In 2017, the annual rent is $1.5 million. And then every 10 years thereafter, it jumps up by $150,000 a year. So you can see from years 11 to 20 on the far left, which begins in the year 2022, the rent will increase to $1.65 million. Now we have two columns here, one no option and one with option. The right-hand column, being the one with the option, goes on to years 100 through 198. And for purposes of this analysis, we've only increased the rent once more, another $150,000, and I'll explain why that doesn't make a lot of difference in the end when I get to a later slide. But we just assumed the rent would be fixed from then on, but it won't make a lot of difference. How much land are we talking about, and what percentage is that of the overall site for which they're paying this $1.5 million? Well, there's 183.8 acres total in the property. Looking at the latest approved development plan that was approved by the city, there are 151.6 acres that are developable. The subject that we've been asked to value, the leasehold interest on, is 50.6 acres. Well, the math at the bottom of that slide says 50.6 acres divided by 151.6 means the 50.6 acres has 33.38% of the total land area. That means it should be accorded 33.38% of the total rent. So that's what we've done on this slide. Again, the far left column is the year of the lease. The next column to the right is the actual calendar year. The next column to the right is the same annual rent. But now the next column over is the quarterly rent, because by terms of the lease, the rent is paid quarterly. So there are 4 rent payments per year. The next column to the right is the calculation of the 33.38% share of the rent that goes to the property that we are considering here. So for purposes of our valuation, the 50.6 acres is allocated mathematically for the first rent period where we're going to get rent, $125,165. That's on the line that says years 6 through 10. And then it's going to jump up every 10 years by a percentage, the same percentages all the way through. 33.38% of the total rent is allocated to the 50 acres. If we're good so far, we'll move on. We're going to get more complicated. It really gets hairy here. And again, I'm sorry for the small size of the schedule and all the information contained therein, but it's the only way to present it in one look. Same far left column, the years. Next column is the actual calendar year. And the next 3 columns are the ones I just showed you. The actual annual rent, what it equals to quarterly, and then what it equals to for the percentage that the 50 acres equals of the 151.6. Now, the next column is a present value calculation. Everybody understands that there is a time value of money. Money due in the future is worth less today. If I give you a choice between getting $100 now and $100 a year from now, you're going to take the $100 now because you could put it in the bank, it'd be bigger a year from now. So that same compounded interest calculation, the compound interest analysis, applies to the future rents that are paid under the lease. They have a present value that is less than their face amount because they're due in the future. So the next column over, that's called present value at beginning of 10-year term, is, follow this now, it's complicated. It's the present value of each 10 years worth of rent at the beginning of that 10-year period. So if we look at years 31 through 40, for example, which begins in 2042, that annual rent at that year is $1,950. That's a quarterly rent of $487,500. That is a 33.38% share of $162,714. Well, the present value of $162,714 quarterly for 40 quarters in 10 years, the present value of that is $5,161,059, the next column over. However, we don't get that until 30 years from now. So we have to bring that figure back to a current present value, and that's what the far right column is. So the far right column numbers are the present value of each 10 years worth of payment discounted to a today present value. So that line we were talking about, years 31 to 40, the present value of that 10 years worth of income 30 years from now, that today value is $1,283,794. Then we add up all those present values of all those 10-year periods. And the present value of that income stream is that bottom right-hand figure of $10.3 million. That's the present value of the income stream. That's what we are given as a basic parameter of the analysis because the lease is in place, the rents have been written, they're outlined by contract in the lease. That's what a portion of what the city can sell. The present value of those lease payments is about $10.3 million. Now, I said the first thing to do was to define the base income and then to calculate the present value of those. Well, we've done those two. So let's go to the third step. What's the land worth today? Let's talk about that for a minute. There are 4,390 units that can be built on the property. Divided by 72.79 acres of developable residential land is 60.3 units per acre. We have 50.6 acres times 60.3 units per acre means we have 3,052 dwelling units that are allocated to this 50.6 acres. So there's 3,052 units that we can build on our 50 acres. Now, in considering the value of those things that we considered, amongst other things, the main things were that this is a coastal location, which is always highly desirable. You can offer your end unit users, whether they be renters or buyers, views of Biscayne Bay, views of the ocean beyond, views of the park, views of the college campus, which are all very desirable. The units that would be on the west side of the building would have views of the interior of the development, which also could be very nice. So it's a great location right here on the coast. On the other side of that, we do have the history of the site, which was a landfill. There are issues that have to be taken into consideration to develop that land in terms of building the infrastructure, dealing with the remediation of the underground issues with the former landfill material. And those all go into that third line, which is the large land development cost. And then lastly, which is really an important piece of this, is that 3,052 units is a lot of units. And like any other quantity, when you buy it, if you're buying a huge amount, you pay less per unit. Much like if you go to Costco and buy a big box of cornflakes, you're going to pay less per ounce than if you went to the local corner convenience store and bought a small box of it. Well, larger quantities are generally discounted on a per unit basis. It holds the same for land. And here we have 3,052 units that we're trying to value at a single stroke, one time, all as a group. So taking all those into consideration, we went out into the market to look for market evidence as to what is this land worth. Based on our studies, based on my studies, of the comparables that were available, it was my conclusion that the value of this land, where is, as is approximately $20,000 per developable unit. Well, 3,052 units times $20,000 is a total of $61 million as the estimated value of the property today if it could be sold. It can't be sold. The fee simple can't be sold because you don't own the fee simple. You own the right to receive rent under the terms of the lease, and then you own the right to receive the property when the lease terminates, either 99 years or 198 years from the beginning of the lease. So the next step, we're going to do this again because I want you to understand the routine. The next step is to project the fee value to the end of the lease term. Sitting here today, what do we think the land is going to be worth either 97 years, because 99 less 2, 97 years, or 196 years from now, what's that land going to be worth? And again, there's a standard methodology that is taught in appraisal practice. And the way to do that is to grow the value of the property by a rate. So we made investigation again. It was my opinion that the reasonable rate by which to grow it is approximately 3% per year, compounded. Well, you've already seen that number at the bottom, I'm sure. If you take $61 million and grow it by an annually compounded rate of 3%, At the end of 97 years, that $61 million will be worth a little over $1 billion because it has all that time to grow. If we do it for 198 years, sorry, I think I jumped one there. If we do it for 196 years, assuming that the option is exercised, the value of the land for 196 years compounded at 3% a year is approximately $20 billion. It's all theoretical because it's way out there in the future. Now, the next step is to bring that huge number way out in the future back again to a present value. What's that worth today? We discounted it at the same rate that we did the revenue stream, and for the 99-year analysis, the present value of $1 billion, 97 years from now, discounted back to today at a compound interest rate of 5%, is a little over $8 million, almost $9 million. For the $20 billion that's due almost 200 years from now, it's $1,180,000 is the current value of that projected value almost 200 years in the future. But that's what that interest is worth today, mathematically. Now, we've got to put all that together. So the first line is, what's the income stream worth? Well, on a 99-year lease premise, the income stream is worth $10.3 million. That was the present value of all those rents that get stepped up every 10 years for 90 years. There's a next piece of the rent agreement, and that's called participation rent. Every time the developer rents or sells an apartment unit, the city gets a percentage of the profit. We didn't value that part. That part, set that aside. We're going to talk about that later. We don't have a value for that. The next piece is the reversion. On the 99-year analysis, the reversion was between $8 and $9 million. We add those two together, and the present value of the revenue and the reversion for a 99-year premise is almost $19 million, in my opinion. If we do that same analysis for the 198-year version, and it's $11.6 million is the present value. Again, the revenue stream is worth $10.4 million. The participation rent that the city is going to continue to get is not considered, and then the reversion is a little over $1 million. The total is $11.6 million. Now, let's talk about comments and finish up with wrapping this thing up. This is what we were asked to do, as I said in the first slide, to estimate the city's interest in the income stream from the base rent payment, that which is scheduled in the lease that jumps up every 10 years. It's very fixed. We were not asked to value the city's total interest, meaning the value of the participation rent. And why were we not? We had a discussion in the beginning. When we were first brought in, we talked about how one would go about valuing that participation rent interest. And we agreed, we the three appraisers, and Jack Winston, and your city manager, and the developer all agreed that that part of the analysis, while very valuable, is very speculative on how you would go about valuing it. Well, why is that speculative? Well, there's a rate for profit on rentals that's different from a rate on sales of condominium apartments. And we don't know what the mix would be between rentals and condominiums. We don't know what the apartments are going to look like. Therefore, what would they be worth? How big are they going to be? Because the developer can build any size they think will be appealable to the market. How many bedroom bath, the quality of the buildings, the amenity package that goes with it. How will the units be priced? We can have conjecture, but we have no idea how these units will be priced. And at what pace will they be developed? How many are you going to build every year or every 2 years? And at what pace will the market absorb all those apartments? We don't know what that's going to be long term either. And what will the units cost to build? Because your share of the participation is on the profit from the sale, not the sale price, but the amount of profit. And then how much profit will be realized from each unit is a determinant of how much money you're going to get. So we can play what if. Well, if it's this much and this much and this much, then this is the answer. And I'll actually do that later to show you how it's demonstrated. But for valuation purposes, this participation rent element, while very valuable, and you get to keep it, the city's going to keep it even after this transaction. You are only selling the revenue stream and the reversion, not that participation rent. It was not included in the appraisal analysis. So your interest, you have three pieces to this puzzle. You have the income stream from the base lease payments. That's the step-up rent, goes up, it increases every 10 years. You have the income stream from the participation payments, and you have the reversionary interest in the land. We valued the top one and the bottom one. We did not include the middle one. So here's a quick summary. We were asked to estimate the value of the base rent. We were not asked to value the participation rent. You're keeping that. It's highly likely, in our opinion, that the lessee, whether it be Olita Partners or, more likely, 3,052 individual condominium apartment owners, would exercise the 99-year option to renew. And the most appropriate value of the city's interest is the one based on the long lease term, the 198-year version. The appraisers all agreed in the meeting, when we were meeting with the manager and the developer and Jack, that's the way it should be done. Agreed? Yeah, we all agree. The appraisers agree. But the city manager said, no, wait, I want to look at the 99-year version to see what it is, so would you please do that as well? So as an instruction from the client, the three appraisers went out and did the short version as well, the 99-year version. Important to remember, there's upside potential for the city in the participation rent because you get a percent of the profit, whatever that is, at whatever time those apartments sell. So 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when the developer is building units and they're highly likely to be more expensive than today, your participation rent will keep pace with those price increases over time, and it will be a valuable asset to you. What we don't have, the subject property does not benefit from the pricing or the activity in downtown Miami. We've been seeing some crazy headlines. The site on the Miami River sold for $125 million an acre. Crazy numbers. 1400 Biscayne Boulevard, we saw that in the paper last week that the related company bought it. Huge numbers. That's a different market, a different area, a different product. It is different. It's small. It's an individual development site. It does not relate to building 3,000 units on all these acres. The subject property is not raw land ready for development. Most of the sales we read about in the paper, the developer can come in, get the permits, start building. This developer has to put huge amounts of dollars in the infrastructure of this property. They have to build the spine road. They have to fix the mitigation issue. They have a lot of land development costs, which they report to us to be about $125 million. Now, we also know that there are some grant money to go with that, but the grant money only covers about $30 million from what I understand. That still leaves them on the hook for $95 million before they get to the place where they have a developable site. All that was taken into consideration. So the subject property also cannot be compared to the highest priced real estate in South Florida. We've heard other people suggest that, well, look at Lincoln Road. You know, buildings there are selling for $1,000 a square foot. Yes, but that's a different market, different animal, different situation. We do recognize the subject property is well located. It can offer bay and distant ocean views to some of its residents. The size of this property gives the developer an opportunity to really create a city within the city with a sense of its own identity. And so the citizens of North Miami can be very proud of this new area, this modern area within their city. It's all very positive news for the city. Wrapping up, 3 appraisers were hired by the city. They concluded within a relatively narrow range of values for both the 99-year version and the 198-year version, and those numbers are here in the middle of the screen. You see the 3 numbers. Jack had outlined those for you when he was here. The appraisers agreed, bottom of that screen, or that slide, that the longer-term analysis is the most appropriate, with a very high likelihood that the option to extend will be exercised. That means that of these 2 sets of numbers, It's this bottom set that is the most likely. So if you take the three values that were estimated, that averages about $12 million. Question.
Before we ask questions, you're speaking on behalf of the other two, right?
I am there.
Or
It was
there
decided. The
any
manager
other
decided.
comments they wanna put that you did not say, and the other two appraisers.
I'd like to bring up the other two appraisals.
No, if they have something to say that's different, different than
Louis
what Mr. Gallagher have to
is here.
say. If he cover everything and we okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
May I make a request in the sake of time for this evening? Our recent presentation just took over 30 minutes. I'd like us to ask our presenters to keep their presentations 10 minutes tops. We've got at least 100 people here tonight who want to speak, assuming everybody gets their 2 minutes. We're looking at a really long night, and if each presenter takes 30 minutes before we even get to the public, we're talking about...
Make it short because they're gonna be asking a lot of questions.
Well, I think he has one or two slides again. Mr. Gallagher, Bob could finish his slide.
Okay.
Well, the only other thing that I have is the manager asked me the question, what if? If we start to look at the potential value of this participation rent, what does that mean to us? And the reason that I didn't include this in the presentation is because this is not my work. I have not done investigation to prove up numbers as to what it could be. The manager said, well, what if we use this? What if we use this? So, Mr. Manager, if you want to give me some parameters, put it in real quick, we can get a number, but realize this is just if. What if? We're good. Oh, it's not on the screen, though.
Based on any market study right now, $300 a square foot construction.
Whoop, just killed it. I said I could do it. Maybe I can. $300?
Yeah.
That's construction, he said.
$300 cost?
Yeah.
That wasn't. What is the
Okay.
unit likely to sell for? That's the question.
Sale price, we're looking at anywhere from 300 and above. 300,000 and above.
No, price per square foot.
Yeah, roughly about 500.
Okay, $500 per square foot, and how big are your units?
I think on
So we don't know how
this-
big they're going to be.
On this site is between 1,100 to 1,400 square feet.
So what? These are your numbers. So
1,400.
you're say 1,400 square feet.
Correct.
Okay, that's a $700,000 unit. Now, how much is the profit the developer's going to earn? Because I don't know. What do you think?
Under the lease agreement, we get 3.25%.
That's not the question. The question is, what's the profit from the sale of that $700,000 unit?
Yeah.
What percent?
20 to 30% is what the numbers that I'm.
What do you want me to use?
Use to the low end, which is 20%.
20%. Okay, so we use 20%. So your participation rent on 3,000, the only two numbers that are fixed is your share of the participation, 3.25%, and there's 3,052 units. Those are fixed numbers. Everything else is pure guess. But on the manager's guess that he just gave me, the calculation would be almost $14 million as the participation value, participation rent. Now again, it's over time. Everything we put in there is the manager's guess, but
Okay.
it's an indication of where it could go.
Thank you. And Alim, and you know a lot of people want to speak, and you are gonna
Well,
say.
just the other two appraisers, if they have any comments they'd like to make.
No,
on
not
the
really
presentation.
comments. Do you have anything to say that Mr. Gallagher did to add to what Mr. Gallagher
anything
said?
else
No,
to add?
the process he described was consistent with the way that that our company, Integra, performed. To save time, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but
Okay.
it was the
Thank.
same.
Thank.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Louis?
I was the lower of the three values, and the reason for that is that I used a higher discount rate. I used 6%, whereas the other two appraisers used 5%. And over time, just a 1% difference in a discount rate makes a very large difference in the value that you come back to. It's kind of like compound interest. If you just 1% more per year after 100 years is going to make a very large difference. So the discount rate was chosen based upon my personal judgment, and that was also true of the other two appraisers. So it might be 6%, it might be 5%, it might be 5.5%. But almost everything else in the two appraisals was very similar. The value of the land today, if it were sold without a lease, all three of us came up with between 51 and 60 million dollars, and the values of the present values of the lease payments was also very similar.
Thank you. We're gonna. You're gonna.
I'm going to ask the appraisers. We've got three appraisers, three of the top appraisers in South Florida, and Mr. Winston. And I believe that your calculation of the present value of the income stream is accurate. I think you've all done it the same way, difference of your discount rate. There are many people that I have been speaking to since we got the appraisals, and there's many people of the opinion that there should be another or additional valuations to this property. I understand that legally we own a piece of property subject to a 99-year lease, and if we sell it to a third disinterested party, that is the only income, that's the only way to value it. But the other school of thought is we are selling this property to the developer, which is really like selling a fee simple, because the minute, the twinkling of the eye that they own this property, they own the full property, no lease. And the question is whether it is proper to take any of that into consideration. People are throwing all kinds of numbers around. The three of you have given the present value, the appraised value, which to the surprise of many, using a 20,000 per unit figure, is $60 million. So my question is, are we allowed to, is it proper to maybe use a blend, to use several different valuations to get to a different rate? Because the other issue is we really are not obligated to sell this land. We have the appraisal. If we don't like what we see, we can just keep it.
Madam Councilwoman, I understand your question. One minor correction, if I may. You retain the participation rent portion. That is not going anywhere. So even if the developer sold the land to another developer, then you would get a participation of that developer's sales. So that piece, there's three pieces of what you own. The three of us valued two of those pieces and added them together. That third piece, the lease stays in place and they still owe you that rent. So that piece doesn't go away. As to methodology, we were hired and sat down in a room and we talked about understanding the problem. And then we were sent out to solve the problem. And then we didn't see each other till we came back. And we all came back with the same methodology because that is the only methodology to value your interest in this lease to whomever it's going to be sold. Whether it was sold to a pension fund who just wanted the revenue, or whether it's sold to the developer who would like to sell condominium units, and those are harder to sell and finance on leased land than they are on fee land. So we understand that there are other opinions. A lot of people have opinions about our appraisal work from time to time, but the methodology we used is the only methodology that is appropriate for the valuation of this leased fee interest that the city owns. So there's no blending with another analysis. There's no saying, well, what if it's $100,000 a unit value today? Can we kind of add that in? No. This property has a single methodology. What's the income stream worth? And what is the reversion worth, because that's what the city has to sell.
But we don't have to sell it.
No.
So
no.
maybe we should be given a little extra something.
Well, you already got
little
something
bonus.
extra, because if you look at the numbers we had on the screen, the three of us agree that the number is that low one. And if you average those together, it's like $12.5 million, which is what the language of your document said that you'd average them together. your manager, and I don't mean to tout him, but he can speak for himself, he got the people to agree to use the average of the long term, which averages out to 15.5 million, and then he got him up to 20 million. I don't know how he did that. But somehow your manager got a number that should be about 12.5 million and negotiated the developer up to 20 million. And the three of us, we don't care. We go back to work tomorrow and we'll go on to other appraisal work. But our opinion was it's worth about 12.5. So there is, you already got more, is my point.
The other starting point was that the manager and I, when talking to the developer, said that the best
Use
thing
the mic,
for the
please.
city was to
Please use the mic.
best thing for the city was to deal with the 99-year, irrespective of the opinion of the appraisers, which is following their regulations to value the 198 years. So the starting point was the average of the three, which came to 17.5 million. The city manager negotiated it up to 20, but I would also remind you that in the appraisal, in order to get to the reversion number, they had to do a market rate appraisal, and that was based on comparables. And looking for comparables in Miami-Dade County in terms of the size of the project, each one of the three appraisers used different comparables, and yet they all came up with using those comparables with a per unit value fully developed between 17 and 20. Two came up at 20, one came up at 17.
Thank you.
And